Here are the most deadly ancient sports and games ever, starting with the brutal and heading straight for the bloodthirsty. Fisherman's Jousting. Ancient Egypt, not the tranquil land of pyramid building you've been sold. Nope, it's more like a primetime showdown on the Nile. Welcome to Fisherman's Jousting. Forget calm boat rides, think Survivor Nile Edition meets Gladiator. When Egyptians had a bone to pick over fishing spots, they didn't just argue. They took it to the water in a spectacle that makes modern UFC look like a friendly pillow fight. You'd almost expect an ancient Egyptian Joe Rogan to be there, hyping up the crowd. The year is 2800 BC, the air is buzzing with excitement, and the Nile jam-packed with spectators ready for some hardcore action.
Today's match is brought to you by, well, nothing, because we don't have sponsors in this area yet. But hey, if you survive, the prize is a fishing spot. And your life, I guess.
Wow.
And let's be honest, it's more exciting than watching paint dry on a pyramid.
These aren't your average folks out for a tan and a dip. They're here to cheer on their local heroes in what could only be described as ancient watery warfare. The boats, forget luxury yachts, think flimsy papyrus reed rafts, barely holding together. And the weapons? Spears. Long, sharp spears aimed at flipping your opponent into the treacherous waters below. One wrong move and splash, you're in the water. And believe me, that's just the start of your problems. Taking a dip in the Nile wasn't just about getting wet, it was a death sentence. Not everyone could swim back then, so drowning was a big concern. And if the water didn't get you, the Nile's resident crocodiles and hippos would. Crocs were always ready for a snack, and hippos, let's just say they weren't keen on sharing their turf. Sure, hippos munch on plants, but they didn't get the memo about playing nice with humans. To be fair, neither did my last landlord. You might think the goal was just to stay afloat, right? Wrong, this was a brutal way to settle disputes. The last man floating won the best fishing spot, a deadly game of musical chairs with spears. As time went on, what started as a savage survival tactic evolved into a spectator sport. By the time it hit the cultured arenas of Greece and Rome, the life or death stakes were dialed down to make it more family-friendly. But let's be real, even with fewer crocs and hippos, getting speared off a boat isn't exactly a walk in the park. So there you have it, a sport where the boats were crappy, the waters were deadly, and being in the river was the last place you'd want to be. Viking skin pulling. Vikings sure knew how to turn up the dial on crazy, didn't they? Imagine turning a harmless game of tug-of-war into a brutal test of endurance and pain, because that's exactly what those wild Norsemen did. Let me introduce you to Viking skin pulling. Just hearing that name makes your skin crawl, right? Trust me, it's as horrific as it sounds. Back in the 8th century, when Vikings weren't busy exploring or raiding, they were, believe it or not, inventing a sport out of sheer brutality, making today's extreme sports look like a kindergarten playdate.
So, heard about the new game we're playing today?
You mean the one where we drag each other into a fire pit? Oh man, I can't wait.
Yeah, because nothing says fun like third-degree burns.
Picture this scene, 1,000 burly Vikings split into 2 teams of 500 each, with drums pounding in the background like the prelude to a nightmare. The rope? Oh, it's not your standard issue gym class variety, we're talking about stitched together animal skins, slimy and stinking to high heaven. These guys didn't do anything halfway. I once tried a tug-of-war at a company picnic, and the only thing I managed to pull was every muscle in my body. Now, what's the prize, you ask? Not gold, not land, not even something as fancy as crown jewels. They were playing for stakes that were, frankly, horrifying. The chance to commit heinous acts against the losing side's women. Wow, makes you appreciate modern sportsmanship and law. Now the rules. In the middle of these 2 teams lies a roaring fire pit. The goal? Simple. Drag the other team into the flames. The losers didn't just get a bruised ego, they got a one-way ticket to becoming Viking barbecue. And the winners? They claimed all the spoils and the unspeakable rights to assault women. It's a stark and gruesome reminder of just how ruthless the so-called good old days were.
You know, I've been thinking.
That's dangerous.
Maybe we should invent a game that doesn't involve killing each other.
Like what? Thumb wrestling?
Yeah, but with knives.
I see we're back to square one. So next time you think about those charming Vikings with their totally inaccurate horned helmets and seafaring adventures, remember the dark, twisted world of Viking skin pulling. Chariot Racing. Ever wondered what happens when you mix Formula 1 with gladiatorial combat and throw in a pinch of madness? Welcome to ancient chariot racing, a deadly spectacle that made modern racing look like a Sunday drive. Imagine whipping around the Circus Maximus, where a single clip could send you crashing into a mess of splintered wood and trampling hooves. Excited yet? Kicking off around 680 BC, it was the deadly dance of the original adrenaline junkies. The charioteers, often slaves or freed men, were literally racing for their lives. Why? For freedom, for fame, or maybe just because they had no choice. Reminds me of why I show up to work every Monday. Talk about motivation. Did you hear about Marcus? Got crushed by his own wheel yesterday.
Yeah, I heard his last words were, "No, not again."
I guess we all have that one bad day.
In this job, every day is that day.
These poor souls were literally tied to their flimsy, two-wheel chariots that were about as sturdy as a paper airplane in a rainstorm. Holding on to reins that might as well have said, "Good luck surviving," they faced death with every lap. One wrong move, a simple slip, and it was game over. Crushed by your own chariot or stomped into oblivion by the horses charging behind you. And then there was the team drama. Teams red, white, green, and blue. Each one is like a mini mafia with more dirty tricks than a political campaign. Sabotage was the name of the game, loosening wheel screws, swapping horseshoes, even poisoning a rival's pre-race drink. It was racing at its dirtiest and deadliest. So, I heard your team put laxatives in our horse's feed.
Yeah, well, we heard you replace our reins with spaghetti.
Touché. Good luck surviving.
Luck? In this job? Oh man, you're funnier than the guy who thought up this death race.
Despite their death-defying stunts, the charioteers themselves were just pawns. The real glory went to their wealthy owners, who lounged safely in the stands while their drivers risked their necks. These daredevils who gave the crowd heart-stopping thrills were barely a footnote in the annals of history. Mesoamerican Ballgame. Can you imagine spiking a volleyball so hard it could decide your fate? And the penalty for losing is, yup, you guessed it, becoming part of the next game. But not in a way you'd hope. Welcome to the Mesoamerican Ballgame, where sportsmanship had a whole new meaning, and the term sudden death was pretty darn literal. This brutal blend of volleyballs and basketballs started around 1500 BC, with the Olmecs and later picked up by the Maya and Aztecs. This wasn't your casual Saturday league, it was more like the Hunger Games with a side of dodgeball. I heard the losing team gets sacrificed.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Any other cheerful news?
Well, the winners get, not sacrificed.
Fantastic. What a prize.
Hey, it's all about perspective. Let's break it down. You've got a 9-pound rubber ball, roughly the weight of a newborn, and you've got to launch it through a hoop, using only your hips, shoulders, or elbows. No hands allowed. Nope, that would be too easy. And these hoops weren't at chest level, they were mounted way up high on the court walls, about 20 feet in the air. Getting that ball through the hoop? It was like making a half-court shot with your hip. Pretty much a miracle. I can barely toss my socks into the laundry basket, so, you know, relatable. This wasn't just about a shiny trophy or some bragging rights, it was cosmic. The ball symbolized the sun, and the game was a metaphor for its journey across the sky. The hoop, that was your ticket to the underworld. Alright, the plan is simple. Don't let the ball hit the ground, ever.
Got it. And what's our plan B?
Plan B? Remember, hips and elbows only.
No hands. Got it. Easy, right?
Yeah, easy. Like juggling flame torches while blindfolded. Or like apologizing to my wife and making it sound sincere. Great motivation. I feel more relaxed already. Said no one ever in this game. Games could last for days, with scoring being as rare as a snowstorm in the desert. The moment the ball hit the ground twice, it's game over. The tension was relentless, and so were the stakes. If you were a prisoner of war dragged into this, you weren't just trying to score, you were trying to survive. Imagine nailing that miracle shot only to realize, oh right, losers' heads might just end up as the, ball for the next game. Spanish records tell tales of players leaving the court battered, bruised, or not leaving at all. Those heavy waist yokes and padding, yeah, they weren't doing much. Feels like my gym membership. A lot of pain for little gain. Venatio. Imagine stepping into a time machine, but instead of cruising to a fun destination, you land smack dab in the Roman Colosseum. And nope, it's not a concert, it's the Venatio, Rome's favorite way to pit man against beast in a twisted survival game featuring lions, tigers, and oh boy, the occasional unlucky human. It all kicked off in the 3rd century thanks to Marcus Fulvius Nobilior, a Roman general who thought, hey, why not? Spoiler alert, the Venatio quickly became the reality show from hell nobody wanted to star in. Kinda like my high school play, where I was cast as a tree, and my parents didn't even bother to take pictures. So, how did we end up here?
Hi, Miss Trent. You insulted the Emperor's haircut.
Seriously? His hair does look like a mop.
Not the time, buddy. Not the time.
Inspired by Alexander the Great's weird hobby for watching lions, men, and dogs duke it out for the top spot in the food chain, this wasn't just entertainment. It was a bloody spectacle, a show of power with a side of gore. Now, the arenas, like the famous Colosseum, weren't just big, round architectural wonders, but Rome's own theater of death. The arenas, especially the Colosseum, weren't just grand architectural marvels. They were Rome's death theaters. Imagine the scene. Humans and animals tossed into a chaotic ballet of violence. The dance floor, lethal. The soundtrack, pure terror. The dancers, not your average heroes, but slaves, criminals, and the desperately broke, armed with nothing but flimsy armor, a spear, and maybe a prayer. It was less a fight and more a frantic dance-off where losing meant getting eaten alive.
Remember, kid, it's all about eye contact with the lions.
Eye contact? You mean like a staring contest?
Yeah, and if you win, they might just eat you quicker.
Great. And what if I lose?
Then you're just a snack. Either way, you're dinner.
And the animals? Oh, they brought out the Empire's greatest hits. Lions, tigers, elephants, bears, you name it. Each won a tragic trophy from Rome's global conquests. The Colosseum's opening bash, a blood-soaked fest featuring around 9,000 animals. That's less of a grand opening and more of a massacre. A real-life horror show that proved just how far Rome would go to maintain control and entertain. But it wasn't just the animals getting the short end of the spear. The humans in the ring, the Venators, had it just as rough. From capturing these beasts to avoiding becoming their lunch, it was a life-or-death gig every time. And the crowd, they loved it, cheering for a culture obsessed with domination and cruelty. It's like Game of Thrones, but with way more blood and no dragons to save the day. Venatio was a twisted form of entertainment. Makes you wonder, why are we so obsessed with watching others suffer? Roman Gladiator. Ever wonder what it felt like to be a rock star with a sword instead of guitar, but with your life on the line every time you hit the stage? Welcome to the life of a Roman gladiator. Fame, glory, and near certain death all wrapped up in one brutal package. Now let's take a second to rewind. Forget the glossy, glamorous idea of gladiators you've got from epic movies. This was less about the glam and more about the grim. The real scoop? Most gladiators were dragged into the arena not by choice but by harsh necessity. Slaves, prisoners of war, or nobles who hit rock bottom, all thrust into the limelight of death. They weren't fighting for passion or heroics. They were scrapping for one more day above ground. Where did this bloody drama unfold? None other than the megastructures like the Colosseum. packing in 50,000 screaming, popcorn-munching Romans. It's like your favorite concert, and if the band didn't do an encore, they'd... Oh wait, there is no encore. They just get escorted out in pieces. Daily life for a gladiator? Sure, they got better food and medical care than the average slave, but let's not kid ourselves. They were living in a high-security death camp where the only graduation was surviving enough bouts to win freedom. Or at least die interestingly. Like my office, survive the meetings to maybe enjoy the weekend. Look at all those people out there. Bet they think we're living the dream.
Yeah, a dream where you wake up dead. Nice.
And they say we're the lucky ones. Better food, better care.
Right, because nothing says lucky like, hey, you might not die today.
Well, if we survive, we might become ancient rock stars.
And if not, just another chapter in the book of, oops, he's dead.
But the bigger picture here isn't just blood and gore. These slaughterfests were political chess. It was Rome's unique way of keeping the peace. Think about it, with everyone busy cheering over the latest bout, who had time to grumble about the emperor's new tax on sandals? It's like distracting and entertaining a crying kid with candy, if the candy was watching people fight to the death. And then there's the spine-tingling thrill of the arena. The fate of a fallen gladiator wasn't in his hands, nor in the hand of his opponent, but depended on the whims of the crowd. Now picture this, a downed gladiator bleeding in the sand, an entire stadium deciding if he gets a thumbs up to live, or a thumbs down to die. And up there in his plush VIP seat, the Emperor, Big Boss Man, playing the ultimate judge of life or death. Reminds me of every time I ask my boss for a raise, same thumbs down outcome, just less sand.
Ever notice how the Emperor always has the best seat?
Well, when you're deciding who lives and dies, you get perks.
Like a VIP pass to human suffering.
And we're the headliners, literally.
Do you think he's ever fought?
Only with taxes, or maybe his conscience. Nah, just kidding. And if the gladiators were not that lucky for a thumbs up, their heads would roll down, literally. But hey, if they survived and won the crowd, they could become ancient rock stars, fame, riches, and even affairs with high society ladies. From disposable to desirable, all because they were good at dodging death. Here's the deal, being a gladiator was the ultimate gamble, with stakes higher than any office job. If they could rise from the pits to the height of fame, what's holding you back from making a bold move? Sometimes you have to face the lions to earn the rewards. So, you survived the deadly games, huh? Now brace yourself, you definitely don't want to miss this one. I'll see you there.
Oh.